All right, so we're here with Nyima Tucker. We're going to be talking about our latest film that's dropping in 3 days. So we're going to screen it at the WA State Library Theatre, and we've been working on this film for over a year. So it's a film and photography project. But yeah, we're focusing on the documentary that we're releasing. So yeah, we're just going to chat about the film and how we made it, how we came about to making it.
Yeah.
So I think how it started was you do some modeling, and I'm a photographer, so I wanted to do something with you, and we met, and then we're trying to find ideas, and I suggested we do this project that's sort of a little bit deeper, has a bit more meaning to it, um, and yeah, we just started taking photos.
Yeah. And I think like when you first approached me, I was kind of skeptical at first. Not because I was like confused about your intentions, but just because I was a little bit nervous to, put my life on display and really share those vulnerable moments of, me and my family and culture and stuff like that. But I'm really glad that I did take the opportunity, and I'm glad that we're sitting here now, 3 days until the film premiere. Like, it feels like surreal, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's a very rare insight. Like, I haven't seen this sort of project before anywhere in Australia. Like, let us know in the comments if you know of any similar project, but I haven't seen this before, and it's the first time, yeah, I've made an Indigenous friend and found out about her life, and it's kind of like, yeah, I think it is a rare insight into the life of an Indigenous person that not many people often see. And what inspired me to make the film also is because, yeah, I've traveled the world and I have friends from different cultures and countries all over the world, but I never had an Indigenous friend and I never truly learned and experienced Indigenous culture. So
Mm,
there's a lot of, yeah, there's sort of many topics we're exploring in the
yeah.
film.
And I feel like a lot of people could like relate to what you said, like you grew up in Australia, but you didn't have like much Indigenous friends, you know what I mean? Um, because especially in the city, I feel like the gap between black mob and white mob, it's a little bit more separate, you know what I mean, than in the countryside. Because growing up in the countryside, I was pretty integrated with everybody in the small country town, you know what I mean? Um, so I had black friends, I had white friends and stuff like that. But moving down here, it was a little bit different going to school because there was barely any black mob. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think exposing the city mob to like the culture and the connection that we have, um, and helping people understand what it's like to be an Indigenous person in modern day Australia, I think that can help us, eventually close the gap and just
Yeah,
all come together, like just sharing our stories and stuff like
I
that.
think that's what it's about. It's just like sharing culture.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like when I travel all around the world, like I love trying the food and meeting the people and learning like
Yeah.
um, the culture of that particular place. So, you know, I grew up in Western Australia and never experienced that. So yeah, it was an amazing experience, you know, having you take me on that journey, and then we get to take the audience on that journey
Yes.
as well. Um, And yeah, I think the problem that I see in Australia is most people don't have that connection or any relationship to Indigenous culture.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the time, say, um, there'll be projects funded by the government, things like that. Um, sometimes there'll be like Indigenous dances in the city and you can go watch, but there's not that like real, genuine connection. Um, and I think maybe maybe a lot of the time there's not maybe a reason for people to do that. Normally you make friends at work or you're interacting at work, and I know
Yeah.
some Indigenous mob do FIFO, so sometimes like they'll make friends that way. But
Mm.
here in the city, there wasn't that. There's not that like reason or that opportunity to. So I think with the photo shoot, it was kind of like I wanted to explore that.
Yeah.
But I also think through the film they can develop that relationship with you. They can see your story, and I think what's special about you is you're so open for people to ask questions about your culture and stuff. You're like happy to educate and teach them. And I think at the screening we're going to have a Q&A, but I think this documentary could hopefully bridge that gap between.
Yeah, because I feel like it's very important not only to be open in sharing like details about my life and about like culture and family and everything like that, but I feel like it's important to be open minded as well. Like it goes hand in hand. And I feel like it can take us a long way if everyone is just willing to sit down and have a discussion, a civil discussion on, what being Indigenous or what they think about Indigenous people and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I think there's kind of an issue maybe on both sides of
Mm.
this argument. I think that is separating Indigenous
Yeah.
Australians from non-Indigenous. So on one side you have maybe non-Indigenous who they just kind of like, they want to have their Australia Day, and whenever they see people protesting against that, they want to just shut it down and say like, oh, why? Because they don't understand and like they don't have that connection.
Yeah.
So I don't put them down for wanting to celebrate on Australia Day. I'm just thinking maybe they're not informed and they have an opportunity to have that relationship. Like if they had some Indigenous friends, they're going to think, oh well, my Indigenous friend doesn't like that, and I would want to invite them to a barbecue, but because they're my friend, I don't sort of agree on the date. But
Yeah,
a
exactly.
lot of them don't have um, that connection. And then the other side, there's also people that are want to be supportive of Indigenous people and they're trying to protect Indigenous people, but in a way they're also limiting that relationship. Like
Mm.
for me, when I approached some like West Australian photography organisations and I talked about this project, they were kind of like, "Oh, the days of the white photographer or white filmmaker documenting an Indigenous person are sort of over. Like it's a bit touchy." Da, da, da.
Mm.
And personally, I think that limits that relationship as well.
Yeah.
Like I just think everyone should be able to make friends with whoever and just create the project. So anyway, we made the project.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I feel like saying that the topic is too sensitive or too touchy, I feel like it's kind of like ignorance is bliss, When people don't have to speak about the issue or think about the issue, you know, it's like the issue doesn't exist. And like you said, when you're friends with someone, you feel a sense of humanity for them and you understand their feelings and their emotions about certain things. And I feel like, yeah, when you have that care for someone, it changes your perspective on certain situations like Australia Day. And I think it is very important that white mob and black mob, they go out and they make friends, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
want to see more Indigenous mob and non-Indigenous mob
Yeah.
just making friends.
Yeah.
And
Cause like growing up for me, I was I was extremely lucky. I could get along with the white mob and the black mob. Sometimes there was times where I didn't feel like black enough to be in black spaces or white enough to be in white spaces. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful that I did grow up with that ability to make friends with literally anybody because it's broadened my like experience and broadened my mindset on not only black people but white people as well and all sorts of people in Australia. Like it's really, really helped me understand people's sides of stories and how they feel about certain things. And that's why I kind of am excited to release this film with you because, finally we can get something done.
yeah, no, I think it's definitely going to help facilitate some
Yeah.
change. Hopefully we can get it to enough people. Um, if you haven't seen the film, we are going to link it down below for people to watch it. Um, so yeah, let's talk about what they can expect in the film. So I think we start off showcasing your life here in Perth.
Yeah. So we did a bunch of like videos with me and my friends. as well as like my modeling here in Perth and stuff. We did a photo shoot with Mario Miotti and Bianca. That was fantastic. We showcased that all in the film. Um, we also, what else did in Perth? Oh, we did some videos with my mum and with my family, so that was really good. And then we took it up to Karratha, and Karratha was really really fun as well. We did a bunch of filming up in Karratha. We did some at the mining industry, like the mining plant, the gas plant up there. We did some filming on the rock art, the Morajoga rock art. We did that with my cousin Jay Churnside and Jordan Churnside. Um, and yeah, it was a really, really fun experience creating this whole film and putting it all together. It was definitely lengthy, getting to Karratha, but once we were there and we got everything recorded, I was like, let's go,
Yeah.
let's go. This is great. But yeah,
Yeah, we kind of took to make the film. We kind of like just chipped away whenever we were
yeah,
both free, and Nyima was doing something like she was doing a photo shoot, and I was free. I'd come and document that.
yeah, it was pretty casual. I really enjoyed that, honestly. You just approach me and be like, hey, what are you doing today? Or what are you doing next week? And I'd let you know. And then, yeah, we get parts of the film done like that in little bits and pieces. And
Mm.
I think it kind of made it better in a way because it's like
Yeah,
pretty organic.
yeah. I'm so happy that this is like a true West Australian film.
I know.
Like
I feel like WA, it never does
it's
anything
like
like
a
this
yeah.
either.
This is like a true WA film because
Yeah.
you're like from the Pilbara,
Yeah. I don't
and
know.
like I don't know. I think that's so cool. And then we're connecting the city to the Pilbara. I think
Yeah.
that's how we're bridging it. Like people are going to see, okay, this is Perth. This looks like Perth. I recognize this place, but then it's also connect to the country. So we're kind of like helping make that connection from where they live to
Yeah.
the Pilbara.
And like exposing people to countryside life and what it was like for me as a young Indigenous to grow up in the countryside. And I was very, very lucky because I was a young Indigenous girl born on her land, like on my grandmother's land. And, I've always had that closeness to culture because it was right there with me. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't run away from it. I literally lived there. And so yeah, I think exposing people to the countryside life and how us black mob live up there and how life is up there, I think it'll be good. And also, it's really beautiful.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing.
I hope,
I was just amazed at the colors and
yeah,
like the bright blue ocean. Like you have
yeah,
these olive greens and reds of the rocks and dirt, and I was like, whoa, this is Western Australia. Like I
yeah.
was born here.
And it
I
was
mean, I wasn't born here,
crazy.
but I was
Yeah,
actually born in South Africa, but I grew up here.
yeah. And it was crazy because, like, when you came and you were like pointing it all out, like, wow, this is so beautiful over here. This is so cool. I was like, me and Jerome, when we were sitting there in the beach, because we went to Hearson's Cove, when we were sitting in the beach, we were thinking, like, huh, this is like every day for us. Like what
Yeah,
we look at, this is like normal to us, but like to you, it was like a whole different world. And what you experienced when you came to Karratha was what I experienced when I came to Perth.
yeah,
I was like, wow, this is completely different to what I was like used to. There's so many more opportunities, so many more different things I could do with my life down here, and yeah, so I think in that sort of sense we kind of had the same reaction,
yeah,
but just like in the opposite
yeah.
places. But yeah, that was cool.
And I think in the film we also wanted to show that you're kind of living a modern life here in the city. Like
Yeah.
there's opportunities here that you don't get in the Pilbara.
Mm.
Um, it's how you're navigating that world. Because I think some people say you're like city folk, you don't see the countryside or you don't see Indigenous culture, so you're kind of like, oh, I don't have a connection to that. I don't really care about that. Like, um, but if you're from the country, um, like you've got your culture there, so it's about navigating both worlds. And
Yeah.
say if you're like an Indigenous person, I think like you're kind of showing that as an Indigenous person today, how you're navigating both worlds, because I think it's kind of necessary in the modern world today to navigate the city life, the modern life. You're working, you're having opportunities, but also like having that connection to country.
Yes, 100%. And it's been, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a difficult journey finding the common ground of being able to enjoy living in the city and enjoy being, on country, it's been pretty hard for me to find, that soft spot for me, that sweet spot. But I think now that I've been living here for around 5, 6 years, um, I've come to really love the city and its opportunities, but I've also come to realize that I still love my roots and I still love to go back and I still love to be with family and connect with my land and culture. And, you know, it's just been a wild ride
Yeah.
navigating both worlds because it was really confusing for me at first. I did a lot of code switching. If you're a black fella, you know what that is. Changing the way I spoke and the way I act in white places and then changing it again when I go into black spaces. And it can get pretty exhausting, very exhausting actually. Um, so eventually I've just found a common ground of who I really am, which is like a mixture of both. I have a mixture of like black humor, a mixture of like white humor, and I'm so blessed because that allows me to understand both perspectives and both people and how they think and
Yeah.
stuff, how they react, and it's pretty good.
'Cause I think that's what I think that's what I would love to see from Indigenous culture here in Australia is that ability to share and to have more non-Indigenous people interact and try the foods and listen to the music and understand like want to have that connection to the culture. Because when I travel to like Japan and I'm learning Japanese and I've been learning Japanese here, it's fun doing like the karaoke with people and eating Japanese food. Like everybody loves Japanese
Mm.
food. Um, I think like that's how it should be here. People come here to Australia and they should be able to like try the local food, like the indigenous food,
Yeah, and then
experience that.
yeah,
And I think like you're someone who you were amazing at facilitating that with me, like teaching, your culture. And when I went up there to the Murujuga Aboriginal Corporation, listening to Jade and like learning about that, that was such a interesting experience.
yeah, like I feel like it's very important to be an open person, just especially when it comes to topics like this. Um, People might disagree with it, but I think that education is probably one of the best things. Like, knowledge is probably one of the best things. And if I can provide people with an insight of, what it's like to be Indigenous and help people understand not only my story, but understand plenty of other people's stories who have moved from countryside to city, I think it could definitely help just bring that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's what it's about, like
Yeah.
not shutting down any conversation,
Yeah,
having an open
exactly.
conversation, because you want to allow people to ask questions, and that's what is great about this film is like, there's questions that, you know, for some people might be too sensitive or something like that, but with you, you're open for me to ask those questions, and I think that opening is how people can like build that relationship
Yeah,
from whatever culture they're
exactly.
from.
And I think it's so important because, um, Indigenous culture, it's so beautiful, and us mob, we absolutely adore it. And, being able to share it, it makes me extremely happy. It makes me really happy because, growing up, I was a little bit indifferent to my Indigenousness. I was a little bit, I just didn't really worry about it as much. But now that I'm older, I really understand the significance and how, you know, how interesting and how lucky I am
Mm.
to be able to connect with my culture and be able to share it because, a lot of people they're not even born in the same country that they're from.
Yeah.
Or they're not even born with their family. Their family's in like Europe or their family's in like Asia and stuff like that, and they live in Australia. And so I feel like I've been blessed being able to be born with my family and being able to have this culture. And I'm so glad that as I'm older, I've reconnected with it because I feel like a lot of young Indigenous folk, they don't connect with their culture. Um, and it's not only just because they don't want to, it's sometimes because they just don't know. their culture, and for me to be able to know mine, I want to be able to learn it and pass it on to my kids. I want to be able to learn it and to share it with everybody else so that they can have an insight of, what Indigenous culture is, because I think, song, dance, food, singing, like I feel like all of that, I feel like that can, and humor, that helps humans get along really well. And I feel like if people stay open-minded and on both sides, if people stay open-minded on both sides, I think that eventually, if we use all of those things that I mentioned earlier, we'd be able to find a common ground, and people would be able to see the beauty of Indigenous culture and
Yeah. And I think,
respect it.
yeah, there's a few kind of themes in the film that we explore. It's like, yeah, one, creating that space for non-Indigenous to learn about an Indigenous person's life, but also if you're an Indigenous person and you're watching the film, you'll kind of see how Nyima navigates the two worlds and how she and the importance of connecting to her culture. Because sometimes there's Indigenous people that they never had the opportunity to
Yeah,
connect to their
exactly.
culture, things like that. So
Yeah. And so I feel like it was like really important, my role in showcasing how I navigate it, because it's pretty difficult, like I said earlier, um, growing up and knowing one thing and then moving to the city and it's completely different. And so if any young Indigenous kids are out there watching, I hope that they can hopefully learn from my experience and hopefully learn how to navigate that sort of the sort of difference in moving. And I just really hope that it helps someone out there.
yeah,
you know.
and I think sort of one of the more powerful scenes in the film is when when you were sitting on top of the rocks, sort of
Mm.
you had the ancient Murujuga rocks on one side and then the gas plant on the other side, and I have some drone shots of
Mm.
um, that gas plant there. I think it's the Woodside Northwest Shelf,
Yeah.
which there's a lot of that extension and that gas plants in the media a lot. So that's kind of where your two worlds collide.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like the gas plant, it represents money, city, stability financially, and I feel like the other side with the Morujuga Rock on the other side, I feel like that represents the culture and my connection to land. And it's funny, because we found a spot where it showcases exactly both
Mm.
sides, and I think it's important to recognize the significance of that scene, especially in modern day Australia,
Mm.
because the mining industry, we're so dependent on it.
Mm.
Um, but then you also think about the other side of it, the land, and what are we doing to the land, and you know, how can we move forward without harming it in such a way? But
How
how
can
can
how can that industry balance both worlds?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think a lot of people might be wondering, like, because we did the tour with the Murujuga Aboriginal Corporation, and sort of, yeah, if you look into the Murujuga Aboriginal Corporation, like some or a lot of the funding does come from the mining industry. So people are wondering, like, how does that work? But
Yeah.
for me personally, just talking to your cousin Jade and the Murujuga Aboriginal Corporation, I think it's a really great organization. And although the funding does come from mining and that sort of thing, I think the progress that I've made, the organization that it's become, the research, the science, it was recently they allowed the Murujuga National Park to be a part of the UNESCO heritage,
Mhm.
to be UNESCO heritage listed. So they're making a lot of progress, and I think from what I've seen, this is like the best way forward. And I know people are saying, like, how can that be if there's parties involved and involved with mining? But I think just from chatting to your cousins and stuff, like at the moment, this is the best way forward. And who knows, later down the line, like funding might come from different places. But
Yeah,
I think we have
exactly.
to walk before we can run, and
Yeah, exactly.
I was kind of happy with what I saw there. But yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's important to see both sides of the coin. You know, how the mining industry helps families, you know, keep roofs over their head, um, but also how it can affect the land. And I think it's important that people consider both of those situations, because if you're only considering one without the other, you know, it's a
Yeah,
little bit tricky to handle
it's
and deal with.
yeah, it's just that difficulty of navigating those two worlds as the
Yeah,
film was about. And I also wanted to kind of invite more people to be aware of what's happening
yeah,
in the Pilbara,
exactly.
because I think awareness is good, conversation is good,
Mhm.
because all West Australians, it's we all have a stake in what's happening there, because our
Yeah.
taxpayer
Mhm.
money, and a lot of the GDP in Australia comes from this industry. So I wanted to kind of, maybe facilitate that education about what's happening
Mhm.
in the mining industry in the Pilbara, and your perspective as an Indigenous person. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you did a perfect job of facilitating that without having any sort of bias
Mm.
towards it, because I feel like that's really important, not to have a bias and to just go into things, like I said, with an open mind and be able to take all the information that you get from both sides and be able to create your own perspective
Yeah.
on what it's like. And I think in the film, you've showcased that brilliantly,
Yeah.
you know.
Because I think just going sort of deeper into that topic, yeah, the WA economy, the economy we have here, it's very simple. It is mining, oil, gas, agriculture. So we need a more diversified economy. We need a creative economy here.
100%,
So
100%.
I'm glad we just we do have that new film studios. I don't know if you heard about that
Yeah,
new film
yeah, I've
studio
heard
that built.
about it.
So that's pretty good. Hopefully we're gonna diversify our economy more, so we don't have to rely so much on mining. And I think if we utilize tourism and that creative
100%.
economy, maybe one day you'll have your own tourism show up there. Come on,
I'd hope
Tourism
so.
WA, hit
Yeah,
up
I'd hope
Nyima.
so.
Um, yeah, hopefully moving forward, and we can protect the environment more. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this film, it really helps, you know, bring up those conversations, and it helps bring up like a lot of different topics, because it's not just about one sort of topic, it's not just about culture or family. It talks about WA kind of like as a whole, you know, talking about the mining industry, talking about being in the city and how different it is to live in like the countryside and the city. And I think you touch up on those topics perfectly without trying to sound one sided. You know what I mean? I think it's good. Yeah. But I do feel like, yeah, what you said, hopefully Perth can, you know, WA can change up its economy instead of just relying solely on mining
Mm.
industry, because I feel like, you know, it would be good for our young folk as well to have different opportunities other than, you know, going and do FIFO.
Yeah,
I feel like it'd be good.
because yeah, I'm going to Japan soon, because yeah, just there's not that amazing creative economy that we could have. Like obviously Sydney and Melbourne is good, but Perth's like very far behind. So if anyone, I'd love to kind of see more better creative industry here.
Yeah, and I feel like with fashion as well, I feel like it's less creative here. I feel like
For sure.
if you're like goth or something and you go out, you know, you might get stared at, even barked at. My friend's been barked at before. Um, so I feel like Perth, I feel like it needs films like the ones you've
Yeah.
created to open up these topics and these subjects, because it allows people to kind of like a vine, you know. You start at the top and then you
Branch
just,
off it.
yeah, you just keep going down
Yeah, because I
all these different
think,
subjects.
yeah, in making this film, I want to show you that you can make your own film, even if you don't have a creative economy, maybe from a small town. Like,
Yeah,
you can create a film, you can have a screening, people will come buy tickets, and you can change the world with your film.
yeah. And one thing I really like about you is that you're motivated. You have passion for what you do and the films that you create, and it shows with the way that you've interacted with me, and it shows with the way that you've created this film as a whole. And you're also really respectful. So
Yeah,
if you guys want to work with Harry,
that's important.
he's right here.
But no, I'm super excited for you guys to see the film. We're linking it down below. Yeah, and yeah, we're gonna have the official screening in a few days. So thanks so much for watching. I'll leave Nyma's details and stuff down below as well.
Thank you
So
so much for having me, Harry.
peace out.
So lovely.